in. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's do a May wrap up. I will tell you about what I read this month that was good, what I read that was bad, and then we will go through my June TBR and then also new releases to be aware of for the month of June. My first book that I read in May was Happy Place. I received this in my April Once Upon a Book Club box. I do have a video out there. It's a reading vlog of my thoughts of this book, and then it's also me opening the little gifts that come from the book box. If you want to check that video out, it is linked down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos. This was one of my favorites so far this year. I found it to be very beautiful. If you are an Emily Henry fan, you're probably all over this book like I was. For me, Emily Henry is an auto-buy author, and in my opinion, this one did not disappoint at all. This one is my favorite book of hers so far. I've seen some opinions where people didn't like it, but then others who loved it. And I feel like that is like a common theme with Emily Henry. You either love a book that she releases or you don't really like it. But this is like her fourth book that I've read, and I feel like every one of her books has a little special something. And I think that there is an Emily Henry book out there for everyone. And this one, I don't know what it was about it. I just thought it was so like sweet and genuine. So this is a second chance romance novel about Harriet and Wynne. They are college sweethearts who are pretending to still be engaged while on vacation with their best friends for an entire week. The timeline alternates between the real life of the vacation week and flashbacks to the past that show Harriet and Wynne's relationship as it develops. Now, I was expecting this to be a humorous book. Like, I was thinking maybe the two main characters would be prickly with one another and kind of like poke each other the whole vacation, and realize like, I've missed you. But no, this book was so emotional to me. I felt Harriet's pain so much over the breakup the entire time, and it broke my heart, and this book definitely made me cry, and I was not expecting that. Emily Henry just does such a great job of writing characters who are in their late 20s to 30s, and I love how she writes about the changing dynamics within friend groups and partnerships and relationships with your parents and siblings. As someone who is in that age group, I just relate to her books, and I just adore her as an author. So if you haven't checked this one out, I recommend it. Next, we have Serpent and the Wings of Night. Every time I thought of this book, I would have to look up the title because in my head, that title just does not like flow well, and my brain just refuses to remember it. This book is best described as the Hunger Games meets the Tri-Wizard Tournament, but with vampires. Main character Oriah is a human, and she was raised in a vampire world by a vampire king. And then every 100 years, their goddess hosts a tournament where there are 5 trials, and the last person to survive basically gets whatever they wish for, and the goddess has to grant them their wish. So the book takes place where it's been 100 years since the last one, and 23-year-old Oriah has been training for this her entire life, and she enters. So overall, the book is pretty violent. I mean, the tournament members have to kill each other off until there's just one left standing, and the trials that they're thrown into are also really dangerous. There are alliances that have to be formed between group members, and that's a huge plot line for the book. There were a lot of things about this book that just worked. I believe the world building, the fantasy aspect really drew me in, and also the romance was super solid. Spicy level wise, like 3 out of 5. The main character, Oriah, was raised to be tough and stoic, and she does not let her guard down easily. And then the guy, Rain, has a lot of layers to him that slowly get revealed to the reader the more and more you got to know him. And throughout the book, I just kept being like, Oriah, he is a sweetie, just let him in. I was rooting for them. And this is a long book, like over 500 pages, but I read it within a few days. I was just super addicted, and I needed to know where the story was going to go. It was very, very entertaining. Overall, I was really impressed. I think the author writes really well and she crafted a great story. I really do think this deserves the praise that everyone's giving it on Goodreads. If you do decide to pick it up, beware it does end on a cliffhanger. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about the way it ended. To me, it was shocking and I did not see it going the way that it did. But honestly, I think I might wait to read the next book. It did just come out in April of 2023, but I have this thing where if I'm like really into something, sometimes I like to wait to really savor it. So I might let the first book breathe a little bit in my brain before I go on to the next. And the one that was released in April, The Ashes in the Star-Cursed King, is a duology for the characters Araya and Rain. So according to the author, their story ends after book 2, and more books will continue with other characters in this same world that she's created. So I do love that the author has let us know that their journey is done after the second book. So then I don't feel like I have to commit to this series that is incomplete at this time. So I love that. Yours truly. I devoured this thing in less than 24 hours. It was so good. I loved it. I was so pleased that it was good. So this book follows Brianna and Jacob. They are both ER doctors. It's a romance novel, but the plot did feel like so much more than just the relationship aspect. There's also this big plot line where Jacob is being a kidney donor to Brianna's brother. I actually found myself invested in more than just the romance aspect of the book, which is pretty uncommon for me in romance books. I'm usually like, okay, yeah, I don't care about the side stuff. Like, let's get to kissing. Like, let's do that. But I was surprised with this one where I was like, oh, I actually like the side story. I actually like the side stuff that's happening. All of the characters, even side characters, I was just really enjoying. I felt like everything was just so well developed. And like, I just really liked this one. I think this might be my favorite one that she's written. I loved Happy Ever After Playlist, but I think this one is going to move above that one. I know that for sure Jacob was definitely my favorite character. He might be my favorite character that this author has ever written, honestly. He was just such like a sweetie pie and was also like very anxiety ridden. And I'm always looking for good mental health reps in books. And I read this one and I just felt like it was really well done. Brianna was very sensitive to Jacob's struggles, and they both did a really good job of showing up for one another. This is definitely one of the better developed relationships that I've read in a book. Some tropes that we had in it was a bad first impression, fake dating, mutual pining, slow burn, and lots of family members. The spice level was probably like a 3 out of 5. The chemistry between the main characters was so good. I just wish that this book was a little bit more spicy, even just like more kissing or something. Even their first kiss was a major slow burn and didn't happen until forever into the book. I constantly was like, just kiss. So the book ended with a trope that usually I absolutely hate, but somehow for this story it worked. And I wasn't even mad about it, and still for me, this is a 5-star read. In the Lives of Puppets. This is marketed as a Pinocchio retelling. It focuses on Victor, who is a human, and he has robot friends, and they have to go save his robot dad. I barely knew the plot line when I bought this book. Previously, I had loved House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door, so I just figured that I would love this one too. This book does lean more towards the sci-fi aspect versus fantasy. I felt like other 2 novels that I've read are more fantasy-based. This one wasn't like that. And that's not a bad thing. It just made the book not really for me. Personally, I found it to be a bit boring, and I didn't feel any sort of emotional connection with any of the characters. 2 of the robot side characters are a nurse robot and a Roomba vacuum type robot. And the characters started out with like this cutesy like banter in the beginning, but then I realized that it was going to be constant throughout the whole book, and it turned out to be a bit cringy and annoying. I didn't feel like TJ Klune's humor in this book was landing for me at all, and this book definitely put me in a reading slump. So the robots are traveling to this robot city to try and save his dad. And when the group got to the robot city, I could not stop thinking the entire time about the Futurama episode where Fry and Leela have to pretend to be robots in a city that doesn't allow humans.
Be you robot or human?
Robot, we be.
Yup. Just two robots out roboting it up. Huh?
And that was probably the most enjoyable part of this book for me. That's one of my favorite shows. And so basically I was just thinking of that show the whole time I was reading it, which doesn't say good things for the book. One thing that I did take away though from the book is I did like that Vic, the main character, would always tell his robot friends to be brave. And now I've tended to start telling myself to be brave during when you're doing anything like anxiety inducing or like at work or whatever. And to be honest, it actually makes me feel pretty good. So that's a good thing that I took away from this. Okay, next is The Depths. So this one I got, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to read through all of the special edition books that I've gotten from like Owl Crate, Illumicrate, etc. And this is one that I ordered back when Owl Crate had a Black Friday sale. And I just bought like a bunch of random ones because they were like half off that I liked the covers of. So I liked the cover of this one, although I have to say, this is actually a rare occurrence when I don't like the redesigned cover as much as I like the original cover. I think that the original cover is way more creepy, and like genre-wise, this is supposed to be like a young adult, like horror, like gothic-esque type book. And I feel like the original cover is way better. We're here regardless. So this book follows 17-year-old Addie. She is on vacation with her mother and stepfather on this remote island. Strange things start happening on the island. There are ghosts and the island is alive in a sense, and it really likes Addie and it wants her to stay forever. So it's a pretty basic premise. Addie is being sucked into this island basically, and it wants to keep her, and she doesn't want to get got. I actually did really enjoy the overall feel of the novel. The descriptions of the island were really great, and I felt very immersed in the story. There were some twists and turns that I didn't see coming that I thought were really well done and that I enjoyed. Overall, I don't really have much to say about this one. My only thing is I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it wasn't young adult. Addie, the main character, was written to be a 17-year-old, and she felt like it. I'm at the point in my life where I can't really put myself in the mindset anymore of a teenager, so that was definitely a me problem and not the book's fault. So if you like young adult books and you're looking for something like a little like creepy crawly, I would recommend it. Okay, so my random TBR pick from my little friend for May was The Maidens, and I felt like I needed to read the author's debut novel first, The Silent Patient. So The Silent Patient seems to be liked better than The Maidens, and so I was really curious. So this one is about a psychotherapist, Theo Farber, who gets a job in a facility where Alicia is a patient. She's there after she's deemed mentally unfit after she was convicted of killing her husband. Since the murder years previous, Alicia has now been completely silent. And nobody can get her to talk. Like, she didn't talk when the police came, she didn't talk throughout the whole trial. Years and years and years, she's just been the silent patient. So Theo decides he's it. He's gonna be the one to break her silence. So the book revolves around their therapy sessions and Theo being obsessed with whatever he can find out about her from like family members and research and things like that. I don't really want to give away anything with this book because I seriously did not see the twist coming, and I loved it. I actually think this would make a really good movie. It had a lot of interesting side characters, and the book did a really good job of describing visual factors. Like, when I was reading it, it just felt like I was watching a movie, which makes sense because I looked it up, and Alex, the author, is a screenwriter. Good job, I guess. So that leads us into The Maidens. This one is book of the month, but I got this one from a thrift store, I think, because I had heard things about it, but I had never obviously read it. So this one has a 3.6 rating on Goodreads. Usually, if a book is below 3.5, I tend to skip reading it because clearly it's not doing so hot. I was so curious about what I was going to think because it's gotten some not great reviews, to be honest, but I kind of loved it. I'm kind of starting to think maybe I have bad taste, but I don't really care. So this book is a dark academia murder mystery. The main character, Mariana, is a therapist, and she takes it upon herself to do a little investigative work at a college when one of her niece's friends gets murdered at the school, and then more murders just keep happening. And Mariana's like, I got this, guys. I'm gonna figure it out. I thought I had an idea of what was going to happen, and part of my suspicion was accurate, but then there was this second twist that completely came out of nowhere, and I felt like, and I feel like it could be considered bad writing because it was just so unexpected. There weren't really any clues dropped or anything, unless I missed something, but I do love a big shock, and so I liked it. I don't know why people hate it so much. I thought it was good. Also in this one, we get an appearance a few times from Theo Farber, the main character from The Silent Patient. So that was super fun. I love when authors intermix their characters from other books. One side note that did annoy me with this book, like none other, was when I was reading The Silent Patient, Theo mentions an ex-girlfriend named Mariana. Turns out it wasn't the Mariana that was the main character of this book. And that just drove me nuts. I don't know why, but how many Marianas do you know? Like, what are the odds? Like, I don't know any Marianas. And so I feel like he should have named his main character something different in this book besides Theo's. And then why would you bring Theo into the story if like they were just like old colleagues, but they didn't actually date? It made me so mad. I almost gave it 5 stars, but then I remembered some of the things I didn't like, so I went with 4 stars. Okay, so I totally forgot that I read this book this month, and now I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else. I did a spoiler talk on this book, and I literally forgot that I read it because this book was so stupid. The Last Word, I was originally very excited to read this book. It's a thriller. It's about Emma Carpenter who decides to house sit for some lady that she's never met from the internet. And she reads a book from an author, like an indie author, and the book sucks. So she gives it 1 star and a bad review. And then she starts thinking that he is like stalking her and like all these things start happening. And this is like the goofiest, wildest book ever. It was weird. It was so weird. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Watch my spoiler talk if you've read the book and you wanna like compare notes. Okay, so moving on to June TBR, of course, every month I read my book of the month book for June. At this moment when I'm filming this, the poll is not complete, so I don't know what that book is going to be yet, but stay tuned for that spoiler talk. My goal is also to read 1 memoir or nonfiction book a month. That's not happening. I didn't read or finish a nonfiction book in May, so I'm gonna try and pick back up that goal for June through the Libby app. I have downloaded the audiobook for Crying in H Mark. So I'm hoping that I can finish it. It's only 7 hours and it's supposed to be a really good memoir. So I'm hoping that I can actually finish it, that I actually will finish it, but we'll see. Nonfiction just isn't my jam, and I'm trying to get myself to read more nonfiction, but obviously my brain is like, romance, thrillers. Like, it's like I shut out the fact that I want to read nonfictions. So we'll see if I actually read it. Also, if you have been watching my videos before, you know that it is my goal to work through my physical TBR shelf. So I have this little thing that I do that is TBR roulette. My little friend here is full of sticky notes with all of the books on an entire bookshelf that is TBR. So each month I just draw one out and I read it. So I've decided this month I'm going to pick 2 because my bookshelf is full and I really need to start burning through these books. Oh, look, I picked up 2. Okay, so the first one, Pandora. What? I don't know what this book is. I'm like looking, I don't see this book. I don't own this book. What am I doing? Pandora. Oh, I don't really want to read that. Okay, that's the rules of roulette though. Okay, so the first one is Pandora. I'll grab it in a second. Beautiful. And Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren. This is weird. Okay, this is so random. I could not remember what Pandora was. I was looking at my shelf and I was like, I don't think that's a book I own. And I almost drew something different. But then I found it. Pandora by Anne Rice. I don't know why I own this. I remember being at an estate sale and thinking that the cover looked really interesting, but I honestly don't really have like any sort of interest in reading this. But those are the rules, so I'm gonna read it. But just know that I'm not that excited. And then second, we have a Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren. This started as I think it was a Twilight fan fiction started by, so Christina Lauren is a dual writing team. I don't remember if it was Christina or Lauren that wrote the fan fiction, but it got picked up and whoever it was brought on one of her friends to be a joint writing team. So, you know, it's like an OG romance book and I haven't read it yet. So I'm gonna read it and we're gonna see if we like it. Okay, so those are some very random reads for this month. Like I said, I'm also going to try and read through some of my special editions that I've gotten from some of these like book places. I don't know what yet, but stay tuned for that next month to figure out what I burn through with those. But also some noteworthy new releases coming out in June to be aware of. Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Same Time Next Summer by Annabel Monaghan. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. 0 Days by Ruth Ware. And The Spare Room by Andrea Bartz. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you find some awesome things to read in June. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!